All right, well, we're reading chapter 16 of Genesis, and Don and Elaine are going to start us off.
Okay, now Sarai, Abram's wife, had not been able to bear children for him, but she had an Egyptian servant named Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, "The Lord has prevented me from having children. Go and sleep with my servant. Perhaps I can have children through her." And Abram agreed with Sarah's proposal. So Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, the Egyptian servant, and gave her to Abram as a wife. This happened 10 years after Abram had settled in the land of Canaan.
So Abram had sexual relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. But when Hagar knew she was pregnant, she began to treat her mistress Sarai with contempt. Then Sarai said to Abram, "This is all your fault. I put my servant into your arms, but now that she's pregnant, she treats me with contempt. The Lord will show who is wrong, you or me." Abram replied, "Look, she is your servant, so deal with her as you see fit." Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she finally ran away.
All right, Sherry, you want to take the next three?
The angel of the Lord found Hagar beside a spring of water in the wilderness along the road to Shur. The angel said to her, "Hagar, Sarai's servant, where have you come from and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress Sarai," she replied. The angel of the Lord said to her, "Return to your mistress and submit to her authority."
All right, Sherry, you want to read the next three?
Then the angel of the Lord said to her, "I will multiply your descendants exceedingly so that they shall not be counted for multitude." And the angel of the Lord said to her, "Behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son, and you shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. And he shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren."
Okay. Angelina, you want to finish it up for us?
Okay. Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. "You are the God who sees." For she said, Have I also here seen him who sees me?" Therefore the well was called Berlahairoi. Observe, it is between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named his son, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram.
Okay.
So,
Does anything stand out in this story?
I find it interesting that at least my version, Sarai was pretty clear. "Abram, this is your fault." I thought that was really interesting, especially since she was the one who suggested it.
Yeah.
But again, you begin to see, what happens when people are just separated from God. All of a sudden, even the very things that they cause, it's everybody else's fault but theirs.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, does that sound familiar from the very first story of the Bible?
Right.
The blame.
And I know that was the thing that got me, is that this time around, it was the woman who was blaming the man
Yeah.
instead of the other way around.
And you notice Abram didn't fight it either. It was, "Yes, dear, it's my fault."
Right.
What? Don't give me that look.
I don't seem to see any complaints from Abram.
No, I don't think so.
No, bring them on, I guess. But
I think it's weird as a woman. There's never, no way I'm gonna send my husband off to another woman
Mhm.
to produce another child.
But that was common, wasn't it, Frendel? That was pretty common in those days. For if they were barren, to be able to have one of their servants be kind of a, what do they call that, a
Surrogate.
surrogate mother.
Right. Because, in our culture, basically value is so much different than back then. Back then, the biggest value is to produce an heir. The biggest value is to keep your, what is that again? To keep your name going. And so people would make actual marital contract. Has nothing to do with love. It's just to bear children. Concubines were very familiar then because, again, the more people that would produce your name, the better. And so this was within that context. And I think for me, one of the other neat things that comes up here is how God really also strikes at what we desire the most. Because for some people in our culture, I don't know, having a kid's not really, sometimes it's not even wanted. But back then it was the ultimate value. For a woman, that was the ultimate value. And for a man, that's what he wants the most. And somehow God worked on that desire to introduce himself. And I know what I tell people usually is God wants to give you what you desire. And that, I know for me, that also was a turning point in my relationship with him. And it seems to me that we have a God who also wants to give us what we desire. Sometimes he withholds it, though, for a little bit. He has his own timing. He doesn't give it to us right when we ask. And that's sometimes what the frustrating thing is. And for Abram, it was over 100 years before God gave him the desire of his heart.
Right.
Brendel, do you think that God really approved of this kind of thing? Of saying, of having a child with the
Egyptian.
servant?
No.
I don't think so. I wouldn't think so either.
Yeah, God never really approved
because
polygamy either.
That is
But
a
go
So
ahead, Mom.
where Hagar ran away because Sarai treated her harshly, in verse 7 there, where the angel of the Lord found Hagar sitting by the spring of the water, and so this was basically God telling her that, it's not really your fault. You're going to have a child, and don't, you're running away because your mistress Sarah is treating me bad, but return to your mistress, and submit to her authority. Now, is she going to submit to her, Sarah's anger, I assume?
Well, it's interesting because obviously, Hagar was a servant.
Sure.
According to the commentaries, it's likely that Hagar was picked up when they were in Egypt.
Sure.
On all the gifts that the Pharaoh had given them, she was probably likely one of the servants that was given to her. And so it's almost like the roles got reversed, and Hagar took advantage of those rules because she was supposed to serve of Sarai. And now that she's pregnant, I can imagine those roles being reversed to where she expected Sarai to take care of her because
Why,
now
sure.
she's pregnant.
Well, yeah, that's right. Thank
And
you.
I'm sure Sarai is already feeling like, I don't know if she felt
Second
God had
class.
abandoned her, but that she could not have children. And I'm sure, being human, Hagar probably took several opportunities to remind her of that.
Boy, sure.
Because you know how nowadays when couples want to have babies, sometimes they have to find out, well, who's the one that's not being able to produce? Is it the father or is it the mother? Or is it the wife or the husband? Well,
Sure.
obviously in this case, they found out that Abraham had no problems.
Right?
So Sarah is probably already feeling guilty. Well, it's me, it's my fault. I'm the one that can't have children, because obviously Hagar got pregnant with no problems.
Sure.
So all that compounding together in this family probably really disrupted a lot, especially the roles of each one of them.
Great. Thank you.
And Ishmael, the baby, is the innocent one. And
Yeah,
yet in 11 and 12, it says how he's going to be a wild man, is untamed as a wild donkey, and it's raise his fist to everyone, and everyone will be against him. And my goodness, he's the innocent one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he's-
sad, isn't it?
He's,
and how much
he's
of that
already,
behavior comes from the way he's treated, or the way he realizes that he is not going to be the heir of his father.
Right.
I mean, it's totally reasonable that he would be rebellious.
he's already cursed.
Yeah. So why do you think the angel told Hagar to go back?
Oh,
Well, um, uh,
I would have run away.
well, there must be a reason. There
Yeah,
must be a reason.
Well, she probably didn't have a home anywhere else,
right.
and she
And-
was
and the-
pregnant.
And the baby is innocent.
Mhm. Well,
Um,
was Hagar abusing her position?
That's right. Actually, it is her right to go back and serve her mistress.
Right.
That is her right.
I'm sure the
And-
abuse went both ways, and I think the angel is basically saying, you're not going to cop out on this one. You
Yeah,
know, that you were given a role, even though it wasn't necessarily approved by God, you were still given a role, and you need to go back. You need to make things right with Sarai. And I can imagine, I mean, you know me, I'm the optimist all the time, so I can imagine Hagar went back very humbly, probably apologized to Sarai, and hopefully there was a little bit of healing. Obviously, we'll learn in the next chapter that there's still some resentment there, but I think that Hagar realized that her position was not above Sarai's, and I think this angel was helping her to remind her of that.
also Hagar had no choice in this
No, she didn't.
sexual relation. She
No.
was a used woman.
Yep, she
And
was.
so she was, that's the way it was.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I also think that was the best option.
Mhm. Yeah.
I know, I don't know, I don't know if my mom remembers this, but I tried to run away one time. I just got so mad. I tried to run away, and I got as far as, because we were in a compound, I got as far as the gate, because you know, I even packed a shirt and a shorts because I was gonna run away. I think about that and just start laughing, because you know, how far was I gonna get to? You
Mhm.
know, and I think for Hagar, that was a thing too. How far can a woman really go before she's going to be in danger? Because women was property back then. It's not like you're going to go somewhere and get a job. Who's going to take care of you?
No.
And usually, if your family gave you up as a slave, chances are they don't want you back anyway,
Mhm.
because that's just another mouth to feed. And what kind of man would want a woman who has a child? It's just, it's sad. I think, you know, sin puts people in really tough situations. And what's interesting is the angel of the Lord. There's been studies on who the angel of the Lord is, because the angel of the Lord also appears uh, to Joshua and to Joshua and some other people, and it's also the angel of the Lord's armies. And there's been a study on this, that because this is Yahweh's angel, and it could very well be Jesus. But this is not probably a time to kind of get into that study. But again, if let's just say it is, whether it is a cherubim, which is right beside God, it seems to me that God really is the one coming down to someone who he has a plan for. And when you look at the next few chapters, you get to a point, you begin to see that both Isaac and Ishmael actually became friends at the end. That somehow God understood that that Sarah and Abram's mistakes, he needs to fix it. And sometimes somebody humbling themselves fixes the problem so much more. And I think the hardest thing for us many times is when somebody does something wrong to us, is to kind of harden our hearts and say, I'm just going to do what I want to do, because this is what I deserve and this is what they deserve. And sometimes God comes and says, yeah, I know they really goofed up, but you guys need to be together. And I think for me, that's the hardest thing God has ever said to me many times is, when somebody has wronged you, God sometimes comes and says, no, you need to go back. That's your brother. My plan is really for all of you. And running away from them or fighting them is not going to go with my plan. And the fact that Hagar went back showed us her faith. Because that had to be an awkward moment, of her coming back. Because I don't think, anybody welcomed her with open arms. I think, everybody was just all awkward, but she was going to obey God. And I think that in itself was counted as righteousness. And God blessed her for that decision, just like he would bless us when we do the tough things, when we say yes to some of the toughest things he says.
Well, one of the things I was going to bring out too was that, we don't know how many years exactly that Hagar was with them, but obviously Hagar's seen a lot of things happen in Abram's experience in Canaan. Obviously, she was there when Lot was taken, and Abram gathered his men together to go fight those other nations. So she probably did witness a lot of things that Abram experienced. And obviously, being an Egyptian, she didn't believe in the same God. It would have been a different God that she would have believed in. But after witnessing the things of Abram, and one of the things I wanted to point out is that, we as Christians make a lot of mistakes. And sometimes our witness is not the way we live our life. And sometimes we're not always true to what we preach. And you wonder, oh, people are going to judge me because I did not live up to what I preach. And here it's interesting that Hagar had her own experience. She experienced God through Abraham and through Sarah and the things that happened. But in here, it's interesting that after her encounter with the angel, she said, "You are the God that sees me."
Yeah, that's right.
And she says, have I truly seen the one who sees me? And it's like, wow, she's had her own experience. Now it's not based on somebody else's testimony or what happened to them, but this is on her own now. And she has seen that God cares about her, even though she's not of the whatever you want to call it, chosen nation or whatever, even though that hasn't existed yet. But still, it's just, I thought that was really incredible that God would take the time to help her have her own experience with him.
Right.
Nice.
and she names her son God Hears.
Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, it seems to me that even through this horrible experience, she was able to trust God
Yeah.
and kind of leverage her whole life around God, and that that's uh, that's a huge commendation, I
Yeah.
think, when somebody can do that.
Sure. Anything else?
Well, I was just going to say, looking back, I know we've talked through it with Sarah and Hagar, but just reading the verse when Sarah went to Abram and said, "My wrong be on you that my maid has despised me when she became pregnant." I'm not saying what Sarah did was right, but you wonder if Hagar did start, like you said, the abuse
Oh, I'm sure
on
there
the
was some
other side of it more
antagonization.
so than Sarah because
Yeah.
of that. And then that led into it. And that's why the Lord said, "You must go back."
Mhm.
Because if Sarah had been doing all the abuse, you kind of wonder why would he have, I don't know. I was just thinking about that. Could it be that she was, and that was a humbling for her, so she could have the experience with God that you're talking about, to
Right.
realize her part in the incident, that even though she was given to Abram, she should have still remained humble and
Sure.
subservient to Sarah.
Mhm. Yep. Well, there's a lot of victims here.
Yeah.
You know, there really is. It's a lot of victims, and everybody could claim their right to say, I was hurt. I was the one, no, I was the one that was hurt. But yet, like I said, the angel of the Lord came and said, well, okay, we're gonna work on reconciliation here. So you need to go back and let's work on this together. So,
I just think they don't learn.
well, do we?
No.
And all of this seems to hinge on the innocent baby
Yeah.
who is in the middle of all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, is there anything else?
Well, you wonder, did Ishmael reach out to Isaac or did Isaac reach out to Ishmael?
You mean
Do
later
we know,
on?
Frendel, later on?
Well, they gathered together for Abraham's funeral or for
Yeah,
his
but
death, but
did he tell him the dad was dying? Did they?
oh, I'm sure somebody as big as Abram, word would have got out.
Yeah, it seems to me that Isaac was the one who reached out,
Yeah.
because again, basically Ishmael is a rejected family member, and even when Abraham died, he had a whole bunch of wives. I'm sorry, no, he had a bunch of kids, and Keturah, which is his last wife, some rabbis actually say that is Hagar, who changed her name.
Mhm.
That somehow Abram really loved Hagar and wanted to reach out at the very end, because when I forgot what chapter that is, I think 21 or 22. Abram actually did give Ishmael some gifts, not nearly as much as
Right.
Isaac, but it seems, like I said, that both Ishmael and Isaac kind of made up, kind of like Esau and Jacob did. And the one who usually on something like that, obviously Genesis doesn't tell us, but usually when things like that happen, the one who has to reach out has to be the favored son, because the favored son can easily reject everybody, and then there's nothing anybody can do. But since both of them buried their dad, I think Isaac said, look, we're brothers, let's do this right.
Mhm.
That would be my opinion on it.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, then I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.
Thank you for joining us at our prayer and Bible study session as we journey through the Bible one chapter at a time. We realize that you might have some questions or comments on the things that we discussed today. And if you do, please feel free to fill out the form below. Also, if you would like to have your own Bible, please fill out the form below and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time at our prayer and Bible study session.